Clara, you are not invited to Thanksgiving this year. My name is Clara Whitfield, 34 years old. That was the first thing my mother said when I pressed answer. No greeting. No explanation. Just a short sentence. Spoken in a flat, cold tone as if she were announcing the weather. If you still have some manners. I apologized to Grant. Then Grant's voice came from behind her. She can eat outside if she wants leftovers. Laughter. The sound of glasses clinking. Someone turned on the music. The entire car fell into silence. I could hear my heartbeat, and even the faint squeak of rubber against the road. That sentence, eat outside if she wants leftovers, kept echoing. Word by word. Pressing down on my chest. For 33 years. I had cooked, cleaned, paid debts, and done everything so my family could sit around that table. And now, they told me I no longer had a place there. Before I tell you what happened after that phone call, tell me where you are watching this video from, and what time it is there. I will read everything to connect with you. If you can, please hit like and subscribe if you have ever been treated like an outsider in your own home. Now, let's go back to that afternoon, the moment I realized I had just been erased from my own family's table. I didn't hang up right away. On the other end of the line, there were still voices, laughter, and the sound of knives and forks touching porcelain, the familiar sound of Thanksgiving, which I had always been the one to prepare. My mother's voice cut through the noise. Small but clear. You should think again. Clara, the whole family just wants peace. Peace. A simple word they use to justify every silence, every injustice. Every time I had to bite my tongue and say nothing. I pulled over to the side of the road. Dry leaves swirled around the tires, and wind whistled through the cracks in the door. And in that moment, I heard a kind of silence heavy as metal. Not the comforting kind, but the kind that makes you realize you've just been erased from something forever. I took a deep breath. The smell of cold coffee, burnt brakes, and old plastic mixed together, sharp and choking in my throat. Outside, the house lights along the street had begun to glow, golden windows, crowded tables. Everyone was gathered together. And I, the one who used to roast the turkey, wash the dishes, arrange the flowers, was now sitting here, listening to the radio talk about Thanksgiving traffic, alone among thousands of cars heading home. I looked down at my phone. Its screen still lit. The name Mom was still there, small, cold, like an unsent message. I pressed the end button. A click sounded. Then the radio automatically came back on the female host's voice rose. Good evening. Massachusetts. Tonight's traffic is heavier than usual. I laughed softly. The sound was strange, as if it didn't belong to me. My hand on the steering wheel trembled slightly. Part of me wanted to turn the car around, to drive straight to that glowing wooden house, walk in, and ask if they even knew what they had just cut away. But I didn't. I just said, softly enough for only myself to hear, maybe they'll notice when the lights go out. I started the car again. The headlights from the opposite direction reflected off the windshield, catching my eyes empty, but clearer than ever. The car blended into the stream of people heading home, and I kept driving, knowing that this Thanksgiving would be the first time I didn't have to set the table, but perhaps the first time I was truly free. The morning light filtered through the curtains, pale and thin like the last breath of a dying candle. Clara opened her eyes. The old heater hissed faintly, mixing with the sound of wind whistling outside the window. She sat up, her head heavy, her throat dry. The half-finished cup of coffee from last night sat cold and flat on the table. No smell of baking. No cinnamon. No voices. Only pale light and the steady ticking of the wall clock. On the TV, a cheerful host was speaking. Happy Thanksgiving morning. Boston. The roads are clear. Families are gathering. Clara turned off the TV. Silence returned, heavier than the cheerful voice. Through the window, She saw smoke rising from her neighbors' chimneys, white and soft like cotton. Everyone was preparing for a day of reunion except her. She wondered. The whole world goes on, only I have stopped. Her phone buzzed. The screen lit up group chat Whitfield family dinner, heart emojis, pictures of dishes, wine glasses, messages saying, "So grateful for everyone here tonight." Her name wasn't there. No private message. No mention. Her finger hovered over the Leave Group button. She didn't press it. Instead, she opened the photo section. Her mother curled hair. Red dress, Grant smiling brightly, holding a glass of wine. On the table was the pumpkin pie she had once taught them to bake. Every detail, the wine glass, the tablecloth, the white roses were all things she used to prepare. Now they appeared like evidence that she had been erased from her own memories. A new message popped up. "Love this family so much," she murmured. What about me? She remembered Thanksgivings past. Back in the old house, the morning air filled with the scent of cinnamon. Her mother sat reading magazines, while she wearing an apron, hands covered in flour, back slick with sweat. "Don't let guests see you tired," her mother used to say. "The women in this family must make others feel comfortable." Clara remembered nodding, forcing a tired smile. Every year was the same. She baked, arranged flowers, and chose the music, while Grant only had to show up and be praised for being handsome and smart. When everyone ate, she cleared the table. When they talked, she washed the dishes, and every time she finished, she'd hear her mother tell the guests, "Clara is so dependable, she never complains." Those words had once made her proud until now. When she realized they weren't praise, they were the chains that kept her in the role of the helper, a role she had unknowingly signed up for long ago. She tightened her grip on the coffee cup. So obedience had its price after all. By noon, sunlight slanted through the blinds, splitting her face into light and shadow. On the table, her laptop was open, showing her bank statements, lines of payments, mortgage support, family phone plan, grocery store, utilities, all under her name, each line an invisible cut, slicing away pieces of her own worth. "I bought my place in this family with every bill I paid." Her voice was hoarse, as if speaking to someone in the empty room. And for the first time, she saw the truth. They didn't need her. They needed her convenience. Their family love lasted only as long as her credit card had money. She closed the laptop. In the pale afternoon light, resolve began to form. By evening, the golden sunlight faded from the wooden table. Clara gathered a few scattered papers, her fingers brushing a bill, an unpaid one, the electricity bill. She looked at the small number, remembering her words from last night. Maybe they'll notice when the lights go out. She picked up her phone, opened her list of automatic payments. Her cursor stopped on Whitfield household. Autopay. A deep breath. She pressed cancel. The screen flashed a message. "Your payment authorization has been removed." She leaned back in her chair, smiling faintly. Not a triumphant smile, but the smile of someone who has just reclaimed herself. "If they see me as an outsider, then let's see how they live when I'm truly gone." Monday morning. A light mist covered the small cafe in Cambridge. The air carried the scent of espresso and warm wood. Clara sat near the window, idly stirring her silver spoon in the cup. Across the street, red maple leaves drifted down the sidewalk. The door opened, and Margot Ellison walked in, her silver hair neatly tied up, ash-colored sweater, and calm gaze. The woman who once taught Clara that clarity is the highest form of strength. "Long time no see," Margot said, her voice low and slow. "The coffee here is still terrible, but this seat always gets the best light." Clara gave a faint, tired smile. "I was banned from Thanksgiving this year." "Good," Margot replied without surprise. "Because you don't owe anyone anymore." Clara stayed silent. "Aren't you angry?" Margot asked, tilting her head. Not really, Clara answered. Just empty. As if I've been paying for their peace for too long. Margot took a sip of coffee, then said slowly, if you want to get free, start by looking at how much they weigh in your wallet. The word wallet rang in Clara's mind like a bell. She would turn it into proof, a balance sheet of all the years she had been used. Night. The apartment was quiet. Only the soft hum of the printer breaking the silence. On the table, yellow lamplight fell across Clara's face. No anger left. Only cold focus. Each sheet sliding out of the printer sounded like the heartbeat of someone slowing down. She opened her laptop. Mortgage transfer. $1,500 family plan. $218 pharmacy copay. $76. Each transaction was a fragment of memory. She labeled each tab mortgage. Utilities. Groceries. Medical. Grant. Each category was arranged. Cut. Pasted. And marked. A number appeared at the bottom of the spreadsheet. $68,320. She stared at it for a long time, as if staring at a grave. So it turns out, she whispered, I've bought my place in this family with my own freedom. Outside, snow began to fall. Tiny white flakes melted as they touched the glass. Clara sat among stacks of paper, breathing steadily, her eyes bright under the yellow light. The smell of ink mixed with the scent of cold coffee. She glued down the final page. Utilities. June 2022. A memory resurfaced that morning when the power went out. Her mother crying on the phone, and Clara taking a day off work to fix the bill. No one thanked her, only said, Good thing we have you. No one else in this house knows how to handle that stuff. She looked up. On the wall, her shadow stood amid the piles of paper, small but steady. This isn't my fault. The words echoed through the silent apartment like a ritual of cleansing. 2 weeks later, Margot stopped by Clara's office. The room was filled with papers and open binders. The printer still warm. She flipped through a few sheets, her fingers brushing over the numbers. You did well, Margot said. But looking at them, I feel stupid. No. Margot looked up. You were loyal too long to people who didn't deserve it. She paused at the final tab, autopay accounts. This is where you start. Every cancel button is a prayer. We call it a financial exorcism, banishing the parasitic spirits from your wallet. Clara gave a faint smile, not warm, but clear. If I do this, they'll panic. Let them panic. Margot replied. Your silence will be louder than all their excuses. The afternoon light fell across the desk, illuminating the words, Cancel autopay. Clara placed her hand on the mouse. They're her eyes steady now. Night. The room held only the wind and the fading glow of the desk lamp. Clara labeled the spine of a binder. Her handwriting neat. This is what I did for you, and what I won't do anymore. She closed the binder, slid it into a drawer, and locked it. The soft click of metal meeting metal sounded like the end of an old chapter. She poured herself more coffee. The bitterness, filling the cool air. Then, as snow fell steadily outside the window, she whispered, the day they see their wallets empty, they'll finally know what I'm worth. She turned off the light. The only glow left was the binder's reflection on the table like an open eye in the dark, waiting to be seen. The morning light in Napa was as thin as a sheet of damp silk. Outside, mist clung to the rows of bare grapevines. The ground still beaded with dew. In the small kitchen, I brewed black coffee, the bitterness sliding down my throat. The wind chimes on the porch clinked faintly. Metal, brushing against metal in the cold air. Somewhere nearby, the smell of roasted turkey drifted through mixed with butter and cinnamon. The house was so quiet I could hear the second hand sweep across the clock face. No laughter. No clinking glasses. Only sunlight pouring into the empty space where a maple leaf tablecloth should have been. I thought about turning on some music, But just then the phone lit up. The message had only 4 words. "We saved you a plate. Porch pickup." No exclamation mark. No greeting. No love. A message that read more like a delivery notice. I stood still, hearing my own heartbeat merge with the faint sound of church bells in the distance. On the screen, porch pickup blinked like a cruel rhythm of mockery. A minute later, the phone buzzed again, a photo of the dinner table glowing with golden candlelight. 7 chairs, white linens, crystal glasses. No seat for me. I typed back, "Thanks, Mom," then deleted it. That message sounded like asking permission to stand outside and receive the leftovers. I placed the phone face down on the table. Outside, the wind tugged at the curtain, its shadow stretching long across the floor like a thin blade. I opened the closet and grabbed my gray wool coat and car keys. I didn't know why I was going, but some humiliations must be witnessed with your own eyes. So that later, you never doubt your own feelings again. As I stepped outside, the radio from the restaurant on the hill began playing. Silver bells. The music was gentle. But inside me there was only the sound of emptiness. The phone screen lit up once more. "Text me when you arrive so I can turn on the porch light." Not so I could come inside. Only so I could clearly see what they'd left for the outsider. The road to the old house stretched long, carpeted with fallen maple leaves, the wind carrying the scent of wood smoke through every turn. The afternoon sun slanted through the windshield, cutting my face into light and shadow. I remembered every transfer, every bill in their names. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles whitening. The silence in the car was thick, like the air before a storm. When I turned onto the old street, the Whitfield house appeared in the glow of sunset. The dining room window was the same warm yellow light. Moving silhouettes, muffled laughter leaking out. I saw my father at the head of the table, hand raised mid-toast. My mother stood behind him, head tilted. Her practiced smile made for company. I glanced into the rearview mirror. My eyes weren't red, just clear. The eyes of someone who had endured enough. A light breeze rustled through the vineyard rows, scattering a few dry leaves across the road. It sounded like sarcastic applause for the one left standing outside the window. The red brick steps were spotless, glazed with a thin mist. On them sat a silver plate, wrapped neatly in foil like a package awaiting pickup. The porch light cast a cold circle around it. A smoky gray stray cat sniffed around the plate. It licked at a line of spilled gravy, cautious at first. Then eagerly, I looked at it and realized it mirrored how my family had consumed my kindness bit by bit, never returning anything. From inside, my mother's voice floated out sweet, but cold. "Just leave it on the porch." "Dear, I'm busy. Take it and go home to stay warm." I didn't answer. I just stood there, breathing in the chill and the smell of turkey, listening to the faint clinking of glasses inside. Then Tyler's laugh broke through. "Well, that's fair enough." I took out my phone and snapped a photo, the plate, the cat, the glow spilling from the house. I wanted physical evidence of the truth, not for revenge, but to remember what I'd escaped. A door creaked inside, and the light flickered. I turned away, not waiting to see if anyone looked out. I walked back to the car. The door shut with a firm, the final sound like a period at the end of a sentence. The headlights swept across the porch. The foil gleamed for a moment, bright and cold. The cat stepped back, then returned to eat, unconcerned with humans. I texted my mother, "I don't need the plate. Enjoy dinner." The typing dots appeared, then vanished. No reply. I drove slowly along the vineyard rows. The night wind carried the scent of raisins and wood smoke. I thought of Margot of the financial exorcism. Tomorrow, I would begin. Cut every link, every payment, every breath they were taking from my wallet. No arguments, no words, just the power switch turned off. In the car's mirror, The headlights caught the porch again. The silver plate was still gleaming faintly in the cold. I smiled slightly. They left me outside their warmth. Now they'll learn what winter really feels like. My car turned down the narrow road, leaving the golden porch light fading into the fog behind me. Monday morning after Thanksgiving. Gray Napa light slid through the curtains, cold and flat like a sheet of aluminum foil. On the desk, the notebook titled, "The Ledger" lay open to the section, "Autopay Accounts." Next to the laptop was a yellow sticky note, written in my black ink: property tax, utilities, family plan, pharmacy, Amazon, Netflix, grocery delivery, insurance. I exhaled quietly, my finger resting on the trackpad. One click, then another, each time. A small, crisp sound echoed, clean and final. Like cutting a string. A new email appeared. "Your payment method was removed." Those words were cold as water. Yet somehow the air around me felt lighter. Margot once said, "Every cancel is a prayer." I never believed in prayer. But today, nothing had ever felt truer. The window rattled faintly in the wind. I kept going. Electricity, gas, and water were all detached from my account. And when another email popped up, subject line, "Action required, payment method removed." Sent to Vivian Whitfield. I just sat there, watching it disappear from the screen. A new notification appeared. Autopay canceled. Property tax. Recipients, Vivian and Elliot. 30 days until due. I looked at the clock. The second hand had just reached 8:19. I knew this was only the beginning. By noon, I drove to the cell carrier store downtown. A young employee leaned over his screen and asked, "So, you want to separate your line and transfer the other 4 lines to Vivian Whitfield?" I nodded. "Yes. Starting today. Everyone pays for what they use." He smiled slightly. Typing quickly. The screen flashed. Release line. Confirm. New owner Vivian Whitfield. "Your next bill's going to rise quite a bit." "I know," I replied. "The users will pay." A soft click sounded as the SIM card snapped from the plastic tray. That sound felt like an invisible cord finally breaking. I inserted the new SIM, and the phone lit up. "Welcome, Clara." A simple greeting, one I had waited 6 years to hear. Right at the counter, my phone began buzzing nonstop. "Tyler, who the hell messed with the plan?" My phone's locked. "Vivian, Clara." "What are you doing? Call your mother right now." I looked at the screen for a few seconds, then turned it off. The employee asked quietly, "Are you okay?" "Ma'am," I nodded. "Fine." I just cut their last breath off me. The family group chat exploded. Billing owner changed to Vivian Whitfield. A storm of angry emojis filled the screen. I just stared at the glow, feeling an odd, quiet peace. Afternoon. Sunlight thinned across the carpet. I opened the family's Amazon account: Elliot's coffee, Vivian's vitamins, and Tyler's 5-pound protein tub. I removed my card. Payment method removed. Then Netflix, Hulu, and Max. The gray screen appeared. Payment method required. Confirmation emails dropped into my inbox like sparse rain. I called the pharmacy. The familiar female clerk's voice answered. "We have your card on file for Mrs. Vivian Whitfield's recurring prescriptions. Would you like to make any changes?" "Remove my card. Switch it to pay at pickup." "Of course. We'll need a new card before the next refill is processed." "Good. Send that notice to my mother." I hung up. Voicemail showed 2 new messages. Vivian's voice trembled slightly. "CL Clara. The pharmacy said your card was declined. Can you look into it? I'm busy cooking." I stopped the playback. Hit save. But didn't call back. I wrote in the ledger. Removed 7 breathing sources. 1, 2, 4, 6 p.m. Another email appeared and read: "Action needed. Pharmacy payment removed." I poured water into a glass. The sound of it hitting the glass was the only answer I needed today. Cut. Late afternoon. The wind picked up. The phone rang again and again, the screen flashing like fireworks. I turned off the sound, letting it vibrate in silence. From the window, I watched the sun drop behind the vineyard hills, slicing the light into sharp edges. Tyler, are you insane? You canceled Mom's meds. Power. And phone. Who do you think you are, Elliot, sweetheart? If it's not too much trouble, could you pay the water heater bill? If not, I'll manage. Vivian email. Someone has sabotaged the household's financial structure. This behavior is irresponsible. I opened the window. Cold air swept in, carrying the scent of wet wood and dry leaves. I texted Margot. Done 70%. Should I warn them? No. Silence isn't peace. It's offense. I stared at that message for a while, then laughed softly. On the balcony, the wind chimes rang, sounding like a countdown clock. A few moments later, Vivian sent a photo, final notice property tax. Caption. Now you see how serious this is. I looked at the bold word. Final. The ink slightly smudged. I opened the ledger, went back to the unchecked box, and wrote 2 small words beside it. Right now. Outside. The chimes kept ringing. I knew the real storm hadn't started yet. But when it did, it wouldn't sweep me away, it would sweep them. Night fell. I called the county tax office. A tired male voice answered tax office. How can I help? I want to remove the autopay authorization from the account of Clara Whitfield. Please transfer all notifications to the homeowners, Vivian and Elliot Whitfield. Reason for cancellation: I've paid my share. When he said, completed, a new email appeared. Authorization removed. I printed it and clipped it under property tax. The click of the paperclip was small but heavy, like a door slamming shut. The phone buzzed, a video call from Vivian. The small preview showed the harsh kitchen light of the old house, Tyler's blurry figure gesturing wildly in the background, his mouth open mid-yell. I stared at the screen, the accept and decline buttons glowing side by side. I didn't press either. I let it ring, the vibration thudding against the wooden desk every 3 seconds. I stood, walked to the sink, and turned on the cold water. The stream ran straight and steady, neither rushed nor angry. On the window glass, condensation gathered, then faded away like a sentence that never needed to be spoken. When the ringing stopped, the screen read missed FaceTime from Vivian. I returned to the desk and wrote the final line in the ledger. I have returned silence to its rightful owner. I opened my phone and created a new note with no recipient tomorrow. If they want to talk, they'll have to speak in the voice of those who take responsibility. I turned off the light. The printer's green indicator still blinked softly, a steady pulse, like a heart finally returned to its rightful body. 3 days after Thanksgiving, Napa Valley was drenched in fog. The hum of the space heater in my small apartment blended with the soft patter of new emails dropping into my inbox like rain. Subject lines filled the screen. Account overdue, family plan suspended. Payment declined. Pharmacy cannot process. Property tax notice. No response. I didn't need to open them to know. Across town, the Whitfield house must have been in chaos. I could almost picture my mother Vivian standing in her spotless kitchen, a phone in hand, muttering Systemerror, while Tyler shouted about losing Wi-Fi. Elliot was probably in his armchair, eyes wide, silent, realizing for the first time who had actually been paying all along. On the desk, the ledger was still open. I drew one more line in red ink. Family system beginning to collapse. Day 3. No satisfaction, just a low note, written long ago, into the score. A new email arrived from Vivian. Just one line. If this is some kind of joke, stop before it's too late. I looked at the screen and smiled faintly. This joke. I thought, I started years ago with you. That night, my phone rang nonstop, like an old record stuck on the same track. Voicemail. One, Vivian was sobbing, saying she'd had a mild heart attack. Voicemail, though her voice softer. apologizing for being harsh, but still slipping in the line. You have no idea who I've done all this for. Voicemail 3 low. Almost hissing if I d. It'll be your fault. I sat in the dark and listened to everyone. No skipping. No stopping. Just listening to make sure I didn't tremble anymore. On the table, my cup of Earl Grey had gone cold. Thin steam rose from the kettle, steady. Even like my own breathing, now calm. Slow. Fearless. When the final voicemail ended, another email appeared. Subject urgent. Tyler needs medication. Final line. Please think of your brother. I turned on the desk lamp, flipped to a new page in the notebook, and wrote, "No one is sick. Only those who live off others." The next morning, day 4, the phone rang again. Not Mom. Not Tyler. It was Elliot. I hesitated for a second, then answered. His voice was rough and small. So real it seemed, to freeze the room. "Clara, it's Dad. I know. I went through all the paperwork you sent. That binder, what do you call it? The ledger." He paused. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for letting you carry what we should have shared." I closed my eyes, listening to the steady hum of the heater. His voice trembled slightly, as if he'd just woken from years of illusion. "I don't know if I can fix it, but I want to start over." I only said, "Thank you, Dad." The line went quiet, just breathing. Then the disconnect tone beeped, beep, 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 for the first time. That sound didn't feel like loss. Have you ever felt that? When a small phone call opens everything you've ever needed to hear, if you're still here? I leave a number 1 in the comments, so I can thank you. Now, after that call, everything began to change. I realized some apologies come late, but warm enough to melt ice anyway. When one person speaks truth, the whole house has to listen again. That afternoon, Margot came by. She didn't knock. She just placed a bag of still warm tarts on the table and sat down. We didn't speak for a while. We listened to the rain against the glass, and the soft whistle of the kettle in the kitchen. After a long moment, Margot said, "No one needs to win. Clara, you just need to stop bleeding." I looked at her, and if they try to come back, then let them find the way on their own. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's stopping at the right time. We sat quietly. The rain outside poured harder, but I felt lighter inside. For the first time, peace didn't mean silence. It meant no one was draining me anymore. When Margot left, she left behind a folded napkin on the table, scribbled in blue ink. "No one is truly free while they still fear being misunderstood." I folded it and tucked it into the back of the ledger. It felt like a prophecy. A week later, the town hung Christmas lights. Napa's fog shimmered silver, gold. When I returned from work, an envelope sat on my doorstep, labeled to Clara Whitfield from Mom. I opened it. Inside was a single white card. No words. No signature. No apology. No blame. Only one faint mark, a smudge of lipstick near the edge. I stared at it for a long time, then set the card on the table between 2 half-burned candles. The flames flickered against it. Their reflections trembled as if someone were still speaking, just no longer in words. I smiled softly. Sometimes silence is a message too. I closed the ledger, blew out the candles, and let the room go dark quiet, but not empty. Because for the first time, the silence belonged to me. Noon in Napa lay under fog, soft as gray velvet. Inside my mailbox, a thick envelope, stiff paper, faint scent of perfume, handwritten and slanted. Careful script, dinner at 7. Don't be late. Mom. No apology. No please. Just a polite command dressed in elegance. I stood by the roadside. Cold wind moving through the bare vines. Family dinner. I thought, or trial. I slipped the card into my coat pocket, drove home, and opened the ledger again. Today's heading, Confrontation Table, Closing the Moral Debt. I chose a black turtleneck dress and a long gray coat. No llevelre. No armor. Only steady breath and the right to refuse. As my car passed the cypress-lined road to the Whitfield house, the chandelier lights glowed through the windows like stage lights before a play. I stopped, cut the engine, and put my hand on the door handle. The metal was cold, like a memory I wasn't ready to open. Here to end it, I whispered, then rang the bell. The door opened. Vivian stood there in a cream silk dress, her smile touching only her lips. Behind her, 3 wine glasses are on the long table. The 4th, empty. The dining room gleamed. The white tablecloth was as flat as still water. With silverware aligned with surgical precision, Elliot rose, smiling awkwardly. Sit down. Clara. Tyler sat across from me. White shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Eyes sharp like a man looking for fault. Vivian took the head of the table, raised her glass, but didn't drink. We'll talk like adults, she began. But first, we eat. That's good manners. No one moved. Only the ticking clock filled the silence. I placed my napkin on my lap and looked around. No turkey this year, just lemon butter fish. The dish I used to make every holiday. Vivian Sahil, you've created a mess. Phones cut. Prescriptions, frozen. Taxes unpaid. A family doesn't run on ledgers. A family runs on trust. Tyler let out a short laugh. To put it simply, you like watching us suffer. I didn't reply. I poured water, the thin stream sounding calm against the glass, the only peaceful sound in the room. Tyler leaned forward. Is it fun? Sis, cutting off the oxygen and watching us turn blue. Vivian tilted her head, voice low. Tonight you'll restore everything, and we'll end this. Quietly. She set her glass down. Crystal touched wood with a cold. Final note. I won't repeat old stories. You know what we've done for you. You understand family honor. We don't turn each other into invoices. Her eyes slid toward the leather bag beside my chair. You'll add the pharmacy card back. Restore the phone plan. You will. I looked up and interrupted. You use will a lot. The air thickened. Vivian. Elliot started. But she raised her hand. Family isn't a company. Clara. I rotated my water glass. The light shattered across its rim like broken rain. Maybe family should have company rules. I said, because in companies, people don't use guilt as a form of currency. Tyler pushed his chair back. Voice hard. So you're calling Mom a manipulator? I didn't look at him. I pulled an envelope from my bag and placed it on the table. For the past 3 years. This is what I've paid. Vivian looked at the envelope but didn't open it. Without this family, you're nothing, she said slowly. The word nothing rolled across the table like a marble into silence. I watched it but didn't pick it up. When you left me outside on Thanksgiving, I said, nothing was the last thing I was afraid of. Across the table, Elliot dropped his spoon. The faint metallic clink sounded like a nail being driven in. He rose, hand gripping the back of his chair, voice trembling with restraint. Enough. He looked at Vivian. 3 years ago, the bank sent a final notice for the property tax. Clara paid it. Then the water heater broke in winter, also her money. The phone plan. The meds. The groceries. You knew. Vivian. You let it happen. Vivian sat still. Lips pressed tight. Tuller shut up. You're taking her side because she printed a few receipts. Elliot's voice rose. Sharp. Breaking the air, you asked her by staying silent. The room froze. I could hear the chandelier tremble. A wine glass rolling faintly across the table. Elliot exhaled, his tone softening. I'm sorry. Clara. I let you believe that caring for them was a duty. But really, it was captivity. I nodded slightly. Not forgiveness acknowledgement. Vivian closed her eyes. A drop of wine spilled onto her dress, red and small. Like a wound. Elliot pulled out a chair and sat beside me. Not at the head of the table. He whispered. From now on, my part, I'll pay it. And suddenly, warmth returned to the table, the quiet kind that comes from two people finally on the same side. I stood, folded the napkin neatly, and set it down a white flag belonging to no one. I didn't come to negotiate. I said, I came to close the book. Tyler sneered softly. What about love? Where does that go on your balance sheet? I looked at him. On the line, you owe yourself. It's the only debt no one else can pay. Then I turned to Vivian. You're not a villain. Mom, you're just used to a world where I'm the one who pays the price. That world ends tonight. Vivian sat motionless. Hands clasped. No tears. Only the chandelier's light trembling on her glass. Like the pulse of someone off balance. I placed an old house key on the table beside the envelope. I won't be using this anymore. Elliot nodded once, a quiet witness. I walked toward the door. My voice echoed softly. I'm not leaving you. Mom, I'm leaving the version of me you wanted to keep, the one who was your bank. Outside. The cold wind swept through, the scent of wood and wine dissolving together. As my hand touched the car door, the phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A photo appeared, the white card I'd once left on their table. Now placed on my doorstep. The caption read, Let's finish this properly. Morning light streamed through the curtains, falling across the oak table where the ledger still lay open. The final page ended with a scrawled line. Debt settled. Nothing left to calculate. He sat still, hands around a warm cup of coffee. Outside, Napa's fog lifted, and the scent of ripe grapes carried on the breeze. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely, just light. On the shelf was an old photo of my mother and me, two women baking together on a long-ago Thanksgiving. Flour dusted her hair. I was laughing so hard my eyes disappeared. I touched the frame lightly, then turned away. The silence this morning doesn't scare me anymore. It just reminds me I survived. Through that very silence. I took a thick sheet of paper, brown ink, and my father's old fountain pen. No title. No, dear Mom. Just the truth bare. Una adorned. I'm not writing for an apology. I'm writing to reclaim the peace that was taken from me for years. I wrote slowly, as if speaking to the past. I don't want to win anymore. Mom, I just want to understand. I know you love me. It's just that your way of loving always made me feel like I had to pay for it. The ink blurred where my hand trembled, not from grief, but from release. The letter wasn't meant to be sent. It was how I learned to pronounce the word forgive again. The doorbell rang. Elliot stood outside, holding a brown envelope. You won't stay long, he said softly. She asked me to give you this. I took it thick, but light. She didn't say sorry, he murmured. But she said, if she reads it, she'll know. He touched my shoulder, then quietly left. I sat down, hand on the envelope, breathing in. I didn't open it right away. I poured more coffee, letting the warmth fill the morning air. Have you ever felt this in your family? That urge to forgive, but the fear that doing so will only let them hurt you again. If you're still here with me, leave a number, 2, in the comments, so I'll know you're listening with your heart, not just your ears. Now, let me show you what truly made forgiveness possible. I opened the envelope. Inside was a small silver key, old but polished, and a folded note in Vivian's handwriting. It's still yours. I recognized the shape immediately. The attic room where I used to write in my journal at 17. The room I'd left behind when I walked away. I laughed softly. Not from joy, but from understanding. Sometimes redemption doesn't need words. A single act can close a wound completely. I placed the key inside. The ledger. The book closed, not a record of debts anymore. but a document of grace. Maybe, in the end, Mom finally understood. Money can buy silence, but it can't buy back a daughter who's learned to say enough. That afternoon, I stopped by the small cafe down the street. Sunlight streamed through my espresso, tinting the table. Amber. I placed my own letter into a new envelope, no recipient's name. On the front, I wrote only to whoever needs it. Stepping outside, the Napa breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of grapes and late-season leaves. On the brick wall by the door, I left the envelope beside a small sprig of dried lavender. I didn't know who would find it. Maybe a mother. Maybe another daughter. Maybe no one at all. But I knew one thing. Forgiveness doesn't make us weak. It proves that, after everything, we still choose compassion over bitterness. As I walked away, the wind lifted the page. It fluttered open in the sunlight. The words shining clear. Forgiveness is the quietest form of strength. And that's how I ended the war called family. Sunlight streamed through the Napa curtains, weaving into every golden grain of wood in the small apartment. The scent of freshly brewed coffee blended with the faint lavender left in a glass jar. I opened my eyes and heard the soft tapping of wind against the window. Not a cold wind, but the kind that belongs to a truly new day. I stepped onto the balcony. Below, the valley shimmered with dew, rows of golden vines shedding under the early winter sun. Life went on. People still went to work, still made their coffee, and still forgot to close the milk cap. But something was different inside me. Yesterday, I left the Whitfield house carrying an emptiness. Today, that emptiness had become space. Space for light to pass through. Today is still Tuesday. I whispered. But life has turned to another chapter. I returned to my desk and opened the ledger one last time. Numbers. Receipts. Signatures, each line fading, as if even they were tired of being remembered for too long. On the final page, I wrote, "This isn't debt anymore. It's wisdom." Then I closed the book. In that moment, I understood something. We aren't truly free when others apologize. We're free when we're strong enough not to need it anymore. I touched the book no longer. A record of pain, but a memory of a woman who once chose silence, then learned to say, "Enough." Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just takes away the past's right to define you. I once believed family bonds could never break, but now I know family is made of people. And people sometimes love without knowing how to show it. My mother once believed that helping her child meant control. And I once believed that sacrifice meant love. We were both wrong. But perhaps, to learn how to love correctly, sometimes you have to lose each other once. Family doesn't die from lack of money. It dies from lack of sincerity. And sometimes, sincerity begins with two very simple words: listening. If you've ever had to redraw boundaries with your own family, if you've ever been misunderstood simply because you chose silence, or if you've learned that forgiveness isn't weakness, tell me your story in the comments. I find A3. Read every single one. And if you're still listening now, thank you. Truly. Please hit like so I know you felt this too. And don't forget to subscribe so I can share more stories that remind us of what truly matters in life. Wishing you a peaceful, joyful day ahead.